Good evening and welcome to the planning board meeting of February 5th, 2019. Meetings are recorded on Milford Cable. With that, I'll open the meeting and take a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Move we accept the minutes.
Motion by John to accept the meeting minutes, seconded by Babe. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4. Everybody sign? 81Ps. Which one's this one? We'll do it first.
30 Birch.
Birch.
It's actually Test Site Services, Realty, TSS Realty.
I have a application and a check for $450. Signed. I'll turn those over. Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, the parcel's located on Birch Street, runs along the bottom here, and Beaver Street, which runs along the side over here. We have basically a 19-acre parcel, and it's in the IB zone. We want to subdivide it into 3 lots. Lot 34 here, which is 2.3 acres. Lot 35, which is 9.4 acres. And then lot 36, which is 7.3 acres, roughly. That's basically it. All the lots meet the requirement of area, frontage. This is a land court plan, just to let everybody know.
I didn't hear you.
It's a land court plan.
Land court, oh,
Yeah, we
okay.
had to go to land court with this.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't, it's,
Any questions from the board?
Not really.
Move we approve the plan.
Motion by John to sign the 81P. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Lena. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of signing the plan, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Unanimous at 4.
Thank
The
you.
one signature?
No, this is everybody. You want me to date it, Larry?
Yeah, maybe you should, as long as you do it.
It's called Test Site Services.
Say it again?
Test Site Services.
Oh, okay.
Larry Lee.
Larry Lee is one of
Yeah,
the
all right.
owners.
Yeah.
Lot 34 is where the new
I
This
know,
one-
I know.
site plan located.
Yeah, we were here in like October.
34?
Yeah, that's where our office is gonna be located.
Cup's leaking already.
Do you want me to take it and give you bring back copies?
Yeah, three
Okay.
copies, please. I'll steal one of these.
You want to just take that, Peter?
Yes, I will.
Deer Street at Cedar Street here, Larry?
Yep.
Might be another one. Easy, Pete.
All set, Pete? Take care. Same here.
Good night.
This is Deer Street at Cedar Street, Gutierrez Company. I have a check in front of me for $250 for the 81P.
Two of them, right?
No?
Just one?
Yep.
Okay.
We need 3 prints after I sign it. I don't know.
That's all I got. You need copies?
Yes.
I'll have to, yep.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Okay. So this is
That's that.
a lot,
Introduce yourself.
I'm sorry,
Name.
Israel Lopez with the Gutierrez Company. Thank you, sorry. So this is an existing lot at the intersection of Cedar Street and Deer Street. What we're doing is taking a portion, it's about a 10,000 square foot lot, 9,500 square foot lot. We're taking a portion of it and creating a parcel which will become a non-conforming lot solely for the purpose of putting a sign, monument sign there, to announce the entry into the new restaurant depot and Stone Ridge subdivision.
It's actually a conforming lot because there are no lot sizes in the business park zone.
Oh,
It's being established so that they can apply for the site plan for the freestanding sign, which can't be placed in street right-of-way. Once Deer Street's completed, we need to go through a relocation subdivision plan process. And having created the lot tonight, they'll be able to exclude that from the Deer Street relocation subdivision plan. So this proposed sign will still not be in the street right-of-way, because it can't be.
All right,
It's endorsable as submitted.
Any questions from the board?
not right. No.
Make a motion, we sign the plan.
Excuse me. Motion by Betty to sign the 81P. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous of 4.
I'm sorry, John seconded?
Yes.
Welcome.
It's up there
You're back
today.
up, I believe, anyway, so you're doing the
Okay.
site plan review for,
Yes.
Deer Street,
which
Cedar.
I believe is probably the sign itself.
It's the same.
Yes, it is.
Got all the stuff to put the stuff down the shelves. I was there today.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
How big is that?
It's huge.
Is it,
Huge.
Thought I had one.
All the parking.
And
in
we
front
had
was all-
submitted,
that was too.
again, Israel Lopez with the Gutierrez Company. We had submitted
Oh, no, I don't think so.
copies of the site plan itself, the site plan package, but essentially it's the same plan.
There's a copy in my staff report. Typically, you bring them to the meeting, the ones you submit are for review by the departments. So there's a blow-up in the staff report.
Yep, exactly. So the sign would sit within the parcel to be created. We've looked at the sign itself. Sign area would be about 80 square feet. We've had Sims Maney, our engineers, review the location of the sign, sight lines, and confirm that there would be no visual impediments where that sign would be located. The sign would fall within the required dimensions of the sign bylaw, so we're not looking for any kind of variance in terms of the height of the sign or the dimension of the sign. And the sign would be intended, it would be a monument sign intended to announce the Restaurant Depot component of the plan, and then the other future phases would have panels that would be available for this signage on the same sign.
Is that within the 80 square feet, or you're going to be adding panels to increase the 80?
They can't. The
Well, no, that's
maximum
why
size
It's
of
within.
a freestanding sign in that zone is 80 square feet total. So,
Correct, yes. So it would be within.
Whatever is being submitted is.
So we're
gonna have-
approving, I just wanted to make it
Location.
sure that we're approving, and the maximum size sign right now. If the panels aren't there, then they can add the panels later to the extent that they match the 80.
I mean, in theory, they could do an 80 square foot sign that says Restaurant Depot.
Right.
But when
Yep.
the business part wants to identify itself, then the other sign's gonna get smaller.
Yep.
Or the other language is gonna get smaller. So
They could, we're approving 80 square feet, which is the maximum, as to
Oh.
exactly how the panels will be set up.
okay.
That's changeable at whenever they want, but,
Yeah, primarily, the site plan is for the location. It can't exceed 80 square feet, no matter what the site plan says, so.
yeah. Well, that was more for the clarification of the applicant, so that we don't have somebody coming back later on asking for a variance.
Right.
Because they got a new tenant, and they now believe they should be getting additional sign square footage.
Yeah, more space.
You know,
We understand that.
we discussed that.
I'll read staff's reports. Town planner, applicant requests sign plan approval, freestanding 80 square foot sign, 30 feet in height. The property is the newly created 81P that we just approved on the Deer Street right away.
No, I did not.
Double-faced standing sign that will identify Stone Ridge Business Park area as well as the individual use of, uses on Deer Street. Larry recommends approval. We have a letter from the water company that says they're not doing anything.
It's a waddle.
We also have a letter from the fire department that says they have no issues. Any questions from the board?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move we send,
Approve the 81P.
approve the 81P.
No.
You're approving
Oh,
the site.
So-
Site plan.
Site plan, I'm sorry.
Back one.
Yeah.
Motion made to approve the site
Second.
plan, seconded by Babe, motion by Lena. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4.
Bring the Mylar to my office tomorrow. I can
It's a waddle.
hold it for this you need.
What is that water? Name? Is that the name of the person?
Temporary
say?
straw waddle.
Ask Joe. What is that, Joe? What's a temporary
What's a
straw
temporary
waddle?
straw waddle?
Along with the other things.
Those, the round things that they use to control the erosion, the soft, the filled soft.
Yeah.
How are you?
My eyes are killing me today.
CBA special permit referral, 111 Cedar Street, Volta Oil Company.
You want copies for your files?
Do you guys have printed out maps of the site plan?
They're in the back of the
Pertinent
package.
stuff is in the packet.
Okay, good, alright.
There wasn't a full-size site plan that was legible, so.
Yeah, I printed out small ones as well, but I think what you have is a little bit better, and I only got those a little bit late, so I apologize. Again, for the record, my name's Eli Leno from Mayor Antonellis, Jackowitz, and Haranis. Leno, L-E-I-N-O. We represent Volta Oil on this project, and we're before you today for your recommendation for the zoning board, who has the right under the new zoning bylaw to allow self-service gasoline at this location with the inclusion of a full-service pump that will be supported and have an available call for someone to come out 24 hours a day for accessibility purposes. This plan, and again, I apologize for the small site plans, but you can see where the full-service one is, and it will be available so that it meets the requirements of the new bylaw as passed at town meeting.
Plan doesn't show which one is designated.
Yeah, actually, I was just gonna ask that question, because I can't tell.
All it says is all lanes to be self-serve.
So I've highlighted where the full service will be on this, and again, on the bigger plan, which I can certainly get larger copies or send an email
That's all
over.
right, I'll look at his.
Geez, it couldn't be any smaller.
I know, I apologize for that.
Too late. Yeah,
I got my own glasses.
give you the magnifiers.
God.
It says
Oh, I
attendant
see
service
that.
pump island, not half an island.
What are we asking for here?
I don't know if that was clear, Larry, to be totally honest. I'm not sure that this
Self-service.
goes against the
Yeah, but I
bylaw.
know we've got the
Well, it
self-service.
says
No, that you have to ask for
one
a
active
special
attendant
permit.
service
Yeah.
pump.
We're just giving a recommendation.
Yeah, but there's no
That's
definition
right.
of a pump service island. Could only have one pump, so, you know, again, we had a bylaw that was pushed through and didn't have a chance to have any discussions in town meeting, and when we were sort of stuck with what we have, I believe the general intent was that one pump would be full serve is what was sort of presented, so I believe that this meets the requirement of the bylaw. Again, I wasn't real happy with the way the bylaw went. We have what we have. Any questions from the board? Effectively, this is exactly the same as what we had approved, except that now lane 10 will be full serve, and all the rest of the pumps that are there will be self-serve locations.
Full serve with an attendant?
The attendant will come out, he's not gonna be standing there.
No,
There's no
yeah.
requirement for that, but
He'll
yeah,
come out.
there has to be an attendant assigned.
Yeah.
There'll be an attendant assigned, there's also
Yeah.
gonna be a call box and then a phone number.
That was
so
like for
there's-
handicapped people and so forth, correct?
Exactly,
No,
but for anyone that wants it.
Anyone that
but
wants it.
Yeah, it'll meet ADA requirements, so on and
Right.
so forth, so that anyone that wants
I'm
that
gonna go there all the
is
time and
available.
use it.
Okay.
Well, I believe all of them have the call button anyway, so you're gaining nothing other than the fact that if someone drives up here and someone's looking, they're supposed to come out automatically, as opposed to getting out of the car and pushing the button.
That's right, yeah.
I'll test it, believe me.
Well, you can let us know, babe.
Please do.
I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay.
Any questions from the board?
No.
Hearing none, do I hear a recommendation to the zoning board, which is what this is?
Send a favorable recommendation to the ZBA.
Motion been made to send a favorable recommendation to the ZBA for the addition of self-service to Volta Royal site at 111 Cedar Street. Do I hear a second? Seconded by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
With reluctance.
Those opposed? I can't put that down, babe.
I understand. I understand.
Four in favor, none opposed.
Thank you all, have a good night.
One pump for both sides. They have a guy come up.
I'm gonna try it.
In
This?
both times.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
Thanks.
but you pay more.
It's Kevin's.
But you pay more.
You pay more at that pump.
You're not supposed to pay more here.
No, you pay more at that.
Yeah.
ZBA special permit referral for 30 Asylum Street, Robin Howard. Is there anybody here, Larry?
No.
I'll just go through it then. The applicant requests, this is staff report, applicant requests a special permit to add a supplemental apartment to the existing single-family dwelling on the subject property. Supplemental apartments permitted by special permit are to consist of no more than 3 habitable rooms and to be occupied by no more than 2 persons, one of whom must be either a grandparent, parent, or child of the owner or their spouse of the dwelling. This supplemental apartment is to be occupied by the owner's mother and will be constructed as an addition over the attached garage to be connected to the existing dwelling through the existing kitchen. Larry therefore recommends a favorable report to the zoning board of appeals. That's the only
That's it.
staff report that we have.
Yeah.
We do have a drawing of the lot in the package and also a plan showing the addition
It was hand drawn.
construction. Boy, that's big on the backside. It's big on the backside,
It
it's
is
3
big,
stories
isn't
high.
Yeah, it
Oh,
drops.
that
right
is
off.
big.
3 rooms is 3 rooms.
Yeah,
Doesn't say how big they can be.
I know.
Do I hear a motion to the zoning board? If there's no questions.
I'll move to send this favorable to the ZBA.
Motion made to send a favorable recommendation to the zoning board for 30 Asylum Street. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Babe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4. Yep.
Parents will move out, they'll rent it as an apartment.
I was gonna say something, but I'm,
Office space?
if Pat was here, he'd be here.
Call it whatever you want, it's
Yeah,
3 rooms.
oh.
Probably comes down to the fact that they only need 2, but we're gonna build 3 anyways.
Yeah, I wonder how easy mom's gonna have a time getting up that spiral
I know.
staircase.
So that's what I was looking at, it's like, not
Now
mine.
she's going to apply to be a fireman in a regular place.
This
in
guy
her
has
hole.
no show.
Well, that's it.
This is,
Next item is discussion item for the possible zoning amendment for projecting signs.
oh, yeah.
You want to go over what you have in front of us, Larry, first?
Sure. The agenda packet has my original memo from last meeting, so I can just go through that quickly. It's come to my attention that several of the downtown facade improvement grant applicants are interested in replacing signage that in some cases includes projecting signs. The most recent update to the sign regulations makes no provision for projecting signs. So to remedy the situation, I've developed a draft amendment that would provide for projecting signs in a limited way in non-residential zoning districts. So if it can be determined, if you determine that such a change is reasonable, hopefully the board would sponsor the amendment, and we could get it on the annual town meeting warrant. The schedule, while we're talking about the warrant, the schedule has the warrant closing the 28th of this month for a May 20th town meeting. So there would be time to start the process, but it just seemed to me to make more sense if we can come up with something that was acceptable for the board to sponsor it. That would simplify the process. The article text is on that memo as well, so basically it would provide a new definition, since there isn't anything in there now for projecting signs, and would define it as any sign affixed perpendicular to a building or wall in such a manner that its leading edge extends more than 6 inches beyond the surface of each building or wall. That's based as a counterpoint to the definition for a wall sign, because wall signs are defined as, covered up the definition with my sticky note. Wall signs are defined right now as any sign attached parallel to, but within 6 inches of a wall painted on the wall surface, or erected and confined with the limits of an outside wall or building. So the 6 inches comes in because the wall signs shouldn't be more than 6 inches away from a wall. And a projecting sign then would be from 6 inches out. So that's why that number's there. And then,
Yeah, it's further defined though, but because it's perpendicular, not parallel anyways, because we
Correct.
want to make sure that
correct,
it only accounts for sticking out, because I don't want people to start,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's, the two definitions need to reflect each other, or oppose each other, depending on how you want to look at it. And then the new section, sub 14, would specify that within the non-residential zones, you could have one projecting sign not to exceed 40 square feet in area per building. So whatever other signage is on a building, which now you can have one sign per business, per building, per lot. So this would be in addition to all that. So whatever the building owner decides he wants to have on that sign, as long as it isn't bigger than 40 square feet, meets the other standards, then it could work. The only other limitation would be you'd have to have a 9-foot clearance above any sidewalk or street or driveway, or whatever other appropriate dimension.
Yeah, a lot of them are actually, I had taken a look, are actually going to 10 feet, I believe. Quite
Yeah.
a few that are using 10. That can obviously be a discussion point at the public hearing stage anyways.
Right. But I wanted to get something, clearly tall enough that people aren't gonna run into it, or at least.
You don't want a maintenance vehicle to be able to clear it in a
That
way.
too, yeah.
Yeah, it also, with people, depending on what they're carrying and stuff and being relatively there, when I was in Canada, we had the definition of where we had to put stuff is everything had to be able to clear a kid with a hockey stick, so they were pretty much everything was 10 feet.
Well, in Canada, that would be,
It became an issue of people breaking signs.
You have to walk around with the hockey
The
stick.
heating elements in our bus shelters were all that high because.
yeah, that's
So,
interesting, yeah.
The other things that have come to light since we did this would be things like in working with the building official and reviewing some of the applications for the downtown facade project. We may want to look at exempting certain signs and windows that have the hours of operation, for example, or whether a business is open or closed, and determine some limited size for that. Because those are reasonable things to show. Right now, the way the definitions work for signs and windows, most of the signs in the windows would be prohibited. So, because they'd be.
Yeah, because they're facing out.
Well, that, and you got the 5-foot, you
I
know,
don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that, though.
so
Yeah,
other.
the bylaw doesn't really allow, is what he's saying.
Right, so other than
Yeah.
this
He's
text,
saying we may want to look at changing that
Right,
also.
right.
but so other than this text, that might be something to consider,
Right.
but,
That's a
but Laura
different
Mann is here from the downtown committee, and so is Ron Pagnini. If- Hopefully they,
I'll see if the board has any questions first, and then I'll open it up
Yeah,
to them for at least a short discussion, as this is not a public hearing or anything, we're just
Right.
trying to gather information. I don't know if the board has any questions of Larry at this point. Otherwise, I'll open it up to Laura,
I
Ronnie.
just can't see eliminating the signs in the
So,
windows. These people are paying
thank-
taxes.
Sure,
well,
be very quick.
what bothers me about some of the signs in the
So,
windows,
so basically,
They
this
cover
was
the
the
whole
result
window.
of
Sure.
Beals and Thomas
I don't like it or doesn't-
report. They specifically mentioned it. We've been looking at other towns to try to see what Hudson does, what Franklin, certain towns that are somewhat similar to what we're trying to do in our downtown area, and they all have this. So this is just a picture I can just pass around, just to give you an idea what we're talking about. It's sort of, I think there might be two there. Actually, yeah, here you go. So it's, you know, a historic look,
Yep.
you know, just, you know, tastefully. You know, the one issue that we're not, I know that what Larry's proposed says one sign. And it gets tricky when you have a business, you know, a few businesses in there. And I don't know whether we'll have to figure out the size so that we can get everybody on it. We don't want to have a proliferation of signs, that's not what we're looking for. But, so we have to, but certainly we can discuss that further and come up. But the idea is we need to have this approved in some form for the future, because there's, everybody's coming in wanting, we'd like to do that. Beals and Thomas suggested we do this, and we realized that, you know, Larry pointed out to us, rightfully so, that what we're talking about doing in this grant is not allowed under our bylaw. So we said, well, let's correct that for the future. There still are people that need to comply until it's changed and, you know, approved by the AG and the whole process. But we're trying to look forward and say, okay, we want this to happen in the future. So essentially, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
is there anything
You
you want to
know,
add, or?
Yes, but, the guidelines that we did 20 years ago at the federal grant had all provisions for these projection signs. And it's really the look that we would like to see eventually downtown. We don't want to prohibit it. The only one thing I can see, it's one per building, but I know of a couple buildings that are probably 175 to 100 feet long that have 3 businesses, and it would be beautiful to see 3 in a row. Like in Franklin, that's a Franklin.
I was gonna say, this
You
is
know.
not Milford.
No,
No,
it's
no, no,
Franklin.
no,
It's
it's not
Franklin.
permitted, right.
Yeah.
But, if, you know, if it's 20 feet, you know, if it's 20 feet long, maybe that can be one sign if it's over a certain business. If there's 3 businesses in one building, I could see 3 smaller ones hanging over each business versus
Right.
limited it to 1 per building.
Or 3 big ones. You don't want the 3 big ones.
Yeah, no, but, you know, the right size for the
It wouldn't
size
be on top.
frontage.
It
Well,
wouldn't be,
No, it'd be, instead of a flat one, it would be a
it
hanging one.
would be the hanging one like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Something like that, versus a
Okay.
flat one across the building. But if
Yeah,
it's
we have
just
to-
one
we have
per
to- we have to
building,
be-
it might be a little quirky. If there's 3 that are over 100-foot span, 3 entrances, and just to have one for the 3, that might be just one.
Well, we can have that discussion at the public hearing. I think what's going to happen, which becomes very difficult, is how do you monitor that versus any, you know, you can have one business that's long, that all of a sudden, well, he gets to have 3, I only get to have 1, and we get into that back and forth of why do we.
One per
So
entrance.
how do we monitor this so that we don't end up with that? Because, yeah, it's a great idea, but there's a lot of businesses that don't, you know, that will then take it as, I can put up 3 signs, and I don't want that.
Right,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no,
sure.
we
And I didn't say anything about the size, because that was the first thing that came to my mind as to whether that's the right square footage or not, but that's a discussion, to me, that's a discussion at the public hearing in terms of what the appropriate size would be or not to be. I don't have an issue with the general concept. The other thing that, looking at this one, that will become somewhat of an issue here, I don't know how they handled it here in Franklin, this looks like this is over public property.
Yeah.
So we've already
have to
talked
get
to
it-
Charles about that, yes.
They have to get an easement.
Exactly.
And what then becomes the problem is how do we handle that here? Does it come here first, then go to the Board of Selectmen for the easement? Do the selectmen grant the easement and then it comes here? How would we
Well, they-
process that? Because I don't wanna get into a back and forth of who
I
gets
think the position, the town's position so far has been that in lieu of an easement, we would do a license. The same way we did with Wendy Beltramini's deck that she built over the sidewalk on Central Street. So, doing licenses is a much simpler process, may not even require a survey plan, because these are projections over the right-of-way, not on the right-of-way. So they're projecting into it, but it's elevated 9, 10, whatever the magic number's gonna be, feet above
Yep.
the way. So, right now, our bylaw prohibits signage within the street right-of-way.
Right.
So that's a different issue than whether or not the selectmen would grant a license. To the extent that there are existing signs and awnings on Main Street that project, we'll go back and do new licenses. Hopefully, the selectmen will approve new licenses for all of those existing situations. So that part of the problem would be solved. I think the way the building commissioner was going to handle the existing projecting signs is to, as long as the sign structure doesn't change, the face obviously could be repainted or resurfaced or whatever. And at worst case, it would be needing a special permit from the zoning board of appeals as a change from one non-conforming use to another. But unless you're actually taking the sign down, I don't know that it quite gets that far. So depends on what the specific proposal is as to what route it's gonna have to take to get approved. But any new sign, right now,
For.
can't,
Right, but it would have to, if they were going to go forward, they'd have to come to us for site plan approval effectively,
for a new one.
for new one, yeah.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get it solved in the future for the bylaw allowing that.
Yep.
Which was sort of something we missed when we were looking at this. Beals and Thomas caught it, and then we've been talking with Larry about how to solve that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what the process is, if it's a licensed process, that's fine, what I don't wanna do is get into if the license is, the business can have this, then that makes it easy, because then it comes to us in terms of location, and we can look at the location, the proper location. If it came down to an easement, or the license said you can put it, but it has to be put here, and that isn't where we want it, I didn't wanna get into that back and forth, I mean, that doesn't get anywhere.
No, no,
Yeah, I think the purpose, or when I talked to Charles, town council about this, is it's your purview. I mean, it's, you guys are gonna decide. He will then do a license up that will include the proper insurance and the requirements that can be terminated, I think, 30 or 60 days by the town. We need the right to
Right.
terminate it.
Yep.
So he'll handle that part, but really, it's after your purview of, going through that.
yeah, we've got a kind of a draft license
exactly,
ready
so,
for
yep.
89 Main, because of all the applications so far, 89 Main is the cleanest, and would seem to me anyway, not to make any suggestions to the committee, but that one seems to be
It is.
approvable the way it was submitted, but
I like it.
Nice.
the other issue of process would be, to the extent that we can flesh it out as much as possible, it would be preferable to try and iron out as many kinks as we can before the warrant gets published. Which is a different date slightly than when the warrant closes, but nonetheless, to the extent that we all will be looking at this as well, within the meetings that we have left before the cutoff, it would be nice to be able to flesh it out as much as possible, so that there aren't motions to amend on the floor town meeting to try to cover extra stuff, because those things tend to
Yeah, as long as, I think we can still be okay, though. I mean, we've gone many times putting the change on people's chairs and handing it out and saying it's
Well,
as
yeah,
was
if
done
it's,
there.
if
We
it's
have to
your
do that.
change, yeah, if
Yeah.
it's your, yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I would assume there should be enough time that, based on
Right.
everybody, we should be able to be our change in terms of it going forward. Yeah, to be honest, and that was the thing that came up with Volta Royal, I would be hesitant for a change on floor in allowing the moderator to allow that to go forward. I have my issues with whether Volta Royal was truly something that we gave a recommendation on or not, and
Well,
was
yeah,
really
that's
wanted
a
to change, so that.
Good example, or a bad example.
That's one
of what happens.
Certainly not one that if we're going to be representing it, it's gonna be one that we take to the floor.
So unless there's some major difference, it may not even be necessary to do the revision that way, but doing the revision so that the board would have it ready, it would be on the town meeting member's chair,
Yep.
and that would be introduced that way by the moderator, then, short of that, I think we'll be able to come pretty close.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I don't, any questions from the board? I'm fine with the general concept, so I see no reason not to go forward and then iron it out as we go forward.
all right.
I don't have a problem with that.
All right, thank you. Any questions anytime? And maybe Larry, maybe we can, talk with you about,
Nobody's gonna go with
the
anyway, so it
specifics
doesn't
of,
matter.
What?
I said, anything I got to
Still gotta
say,
get
nobody's gonna
clearance.
go along with it.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, take care.
Those signs in the
Nice
window,
to see you.
those signs in the window, on the window, that's what we want, that's.
I know
Ronnie, you want this back?
what they look like with, you know.
I don't need it back, you guys want
Oh, thank you.
No,
We
it's
won't,
just
if you
gonna
want
be-
it, if you want it. Larry?
it. Make a nice airplane.
One each.
We're just gonna dump it.
All right. Thanks, Ronnie.
Last item is, Shania Crossing, retaining wall, alternative design and installation schedule.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Joe. I was talking.
Shania Crossing, retaining wall, alternative design and installation schedule. We have the details for the design for the modular block wall, which we had a discussion on. The lawyer is looking for, and has written a letter to us, to Larry, but looking for my client's conversation with you and the town engineer, Mike Dean, Shania Crossing LLC hereby acknowledges the agreement that it can change the type of retaining wall in the subdivision from the original solid concrete walls as approved to engineered block walls as recently presented to Mr. Dean. Further acknowledge and agree that the work will be done by the end of May 2019, weather permitting, and if work is not done in that timeframe, the board may request them to go back to the original solid concrete walls. I mean, I'm not sure that it makes much sense in terms of them going back to the walls, but it's in there, we can force them to do it based on the thing, so I had seen the letter, Larry sent it out to me to see
Yeah.
if I thought it was acceptable. I don't see anything in it that isn't, but obviously their legal people are just trying to make sure that we're okay with the change, so that they have something in their hand that says it's okay, so that's what they were looking for.
Well, and we wanted something in writing that
It's
spelled
when they were
it
gonna
out,
complete it.
other than just the drawings.
Right.
But Mike had looked at both of them, and he was.
So when are
all
they
right.
starting this? Have they started it, or?
No,
No. I
I was
didn't-
up there,
Yeah.
I was up there the other day, they hadn't done anything.
No, well, it's,
You don't
I mean-
necessarily
it's
want
very,
them to
it's very
start.
difficult to, well, they may have started it for all we know, and that this stuff has to be audited. So, I mean, there could be an order in, and it takes a while to
Yeah,
process
they
this
just
stuff.
haven't,
Okay.
they haven't
They
done
done
anything
any
on
field
site.
work, and they're not gonna,
Okay.
I can't imagine them doing anything till April, to be totally honest.
That's true.
The engineering, well, the engineers normally won't, you can't set it if it's frozen, so you
No,
can
you
play
can't.
around with that, but I
Yeah.
don't think he's gonna spend the money to heat the ground and
Right.
get the frost out just to put the wall up.
I like the way it looks.
Yeah, so you don't want them to start real soon.
No,
Huh? That looks much
That
better.
should work.
Looks
You know,
better
by
than
the end of-
rubble.
Oh, my God.
end of
Yeah.
May. I mean, they don't take too long once you start putting them up, considering the type that he's using there.
I
You get a
know, I
crane out
see
there and you
that,
start
and I
loading
don't
the
like
block.
that.
And this will actually look better than the concrete walls would have in the first place, probably, to the extent that you're even gonna be able to see
Better than
them.
what they.
So they don't
told,
need
you know?
anything from us other than, do we need to
No,
take
just-
out that this is, that the letter is acceptable to the board, or?
Yeah,
Do
just,
we have to take a vote on that?
Yeah, we might as well, just so that we,
All right,
of course Karen's not here.
I'll tell her.
All right.
okay.
So I'll entertain a motion that we that the letter as sent by council is acceptable to the board.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Lena, do I hear a second?
Second.
What the heck? Let Babe do it.
Second by Babe. Motion that that the letter that we received from Chanel Crossing is acceptable to the board was by Lena, seconded by Babe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous at 4.
All right.
I'll entertain a motion to
I make the
adjourn.
motion.
Motion by John to adjourn, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Lena, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous at 4. Thank you and good night.